Welcome everyone to History Gone Wilder, part of Half History Will Travel. I'm your host, the Wilder historian, Dr. Lucas Wilder, and last time I covered the Battle of Fort Stedman, with Lee launching his last offensive. Now I'll cover the last significant battle of the Siege of Petersburg, before the Union breakthrough that led to the evacuation of Petersburg and Richmond. If you like what I do, please consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't done so already, join the Patreon page, and purchase something from one of my online stores. Every little bit helps. Thank you. Following the defeat at the Battle of Fort Stedman, Robert E. Lee knew that the Confederate failure would prompt Ulysses S. Grant to launch an attack on his right flank to cut off the only available roads and railroad running into Petersburg. Lee sent two commands to his western flank. The first was an amalgamation of various commands, with the nucleus being George Pickett's division. The other command consisted of mostly Bushrod Johnson's division, and it was ordered to occupy the area of White Oak Road and the Boydton Plank Road, to throw back any attempt by Grant to turn the flank. Grant planned this offensive for days. Philip Sheridan and his cavalry corps was to proceed to the Confederate western flank and attempt to destroy as much of the last railroad running into Petersburg as they could. Grant thought he may even draw Lee into open battle, but knew that was unlikely. The Union Second Corps under Andrew Humphreys occupied the far left flank of the Union siege lines, allowing Gouverneur K. Warren's Fifth Corps to move to the west along with Sheridan's cavalry, which aimed for Dinwiddie Courthouse. In Warren's front lay Johnson's division, and on March 29, 1865, a battle erupted between the two forces on the Lewis Farm. The engagement saw Warren's force defeat Johnson, and the Confederates move back to a position along White Oak Road, where earthworks could protect them from the Union bullets. On Sheridan's front, his men were confronted by Confederate cavalry just outside of Dinwiddie Courthouse, but Pickett's division wasn't too far behind their comrades. On March 30th and into March 31st, first Fitzhugh Lee's cavalry, then Pickett's infantry, engaged with Sheridan, pushing back the Union commander to the town. The rebels pressed Sheridan's men to the extremes as they fought a delaying action, hoping to buy them some time until infantry support could come to their aid. When darkness began to cover the battlefield, Pickett halted his attack and began to withdraw back to Five Forks, where he took a position to guard the road junction. Also on the 31st, Lee ordered a counterattack against the Fifth Corps to hopefully drive them away from the flank. Johnson, reinforced with more infantry brigades, lunged at Warren's exposed left flank, driving them back. In this attack, 3 Confederate brigades drove back 2 Union divisions. The rebels wouldn't see success for long, though. Warren regrouped and again pushed Johnson back to White Oak Road. Sheridan was confident that with a sizable infantry force supporting him, that he could eliminate Pickett's hold on Five Forks, opening up the way to the South Side Railroad. He informed Grant of the plan and requested that the Sixth Corps be allowed to come west to join him for the attack. Grant told him that the Sixth Corps was too far away, being in the middle of the siege lines, but that he would send the Fifth Corps. Sheridan preferred the Sixth Corps because they had performed admirably for him during the campaign in the Shenandoah Valley the previous fall. It was after 9 p.m. when Warren's corps began moving toward Sheridan's front. Warren hadn't performed well during the Overland Campaign or the Siege of Petersburg. Grant didn't care for him, thinking him too timid. Sheridan didn't have a good opinion of the general either. After notifying Sheridan that Warren would be joining the attack on Pickett, Grant sent a message by way of one of his staff members, Orville Babcock, which stated, "General Grant directs me to say to you that if in your judgment the Fifth Corps would do better under one of the division commanders, you are authorized to relieve General Warren and order him to report to General Grant at headquarters." Sheridan planned for his cavalry to hold the Confederates in place while Warren turned their flank and broke their line. The Federal horsemen engaged with Pickett's infantry, putting pressure on them, but it was after 4 p.m. before Warren's corps began their attack. As Romaine Ayres's division advanced, his reserve brigade joined the front line to help strengthen the battle line, especially since the divisions of Charles Griffin and Samuel Crawford got lost, swinging too wide to the north and west and missed the Confederate flank. With his 2 divisions lost in the tangled Virginia forest, Warren went to look for them and get them back on the right path. Sheridan, meanwhile, observed Ayres's division faltering and began riding up and down the line, encouraging the men to hold together and to keep pushing. The Federal infantry, along with Sheridan, turned the left flank, with Sheridan personally riding into the Confederate works. The rebels created another return on their line to guard the flank. The Confederates were without an overall commander on the field. Ultimately, Major General Rooney Lee was in overall command, but he wasn't notified of the situation. Pickett and Rooney Lee's cousin, Fitzhugh Lee, were having a shad-bake lunch and were not on the field while the first attacks were being made. Griffin's division crushed the newest rebel flank, driving them toward Ford's Road, where another third line was put together. It was around this time that Pickett arrived on the scene, having barely avoided capture by the Union forces who now occupied Ford's Road. With Crawford's division getting behind the Confederate left flank, the line melted away. Pockets of rebel resistance popped up around Five Forks, but the damage was done to Pickett's command and what was left of his reputation. Sheridan was at a loss as to Warren's whereabouts. It was Sheridan who rallied Ayres's division. It was Sheridan who ordered in Charles Griffin's division when a gap emerged in the Union battle line. Warren was nowhere to be found. Warren sent a messenger to tell Sheridan where he was, but it was too late. Sheridan was livid. Sheridan told the messenger, "By God, sir, tell General Warren he wasn't in that fight." Shortly afterwards, Sheridan told Warren he was relieved of command, and Charles Griffin would take command of the Fifth Corps. Warren would later go to Sheridan's headquarters and ask him to reconsider, but Sheridan wouldn't do it. The battle had been a complete disaster for the Confederacy, opening up the way for the Union to cut the South Side Railroad. This left Lee with few choices. From March 31st to April 1st, the Union lost 830 men, 103 killed, 670 wounded, and 57 missing. The Confederate numbers vary, but most historians agree they lost around 3,000 soldiers, most of them being captured, with probably 600 killed, wounded, and missing. Grant was thrilled when he heard the news about the victory. He told his staff that he now wanted a general assault along the entire line.